Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Weaver's Web broadcast. This particular episode is going to be a macrocosmic report. At the beginning of this broadcast, you also heard a little bit of a song-woven soul language excerpt from this week's song weaving over on my Carrie the Energy Weaver YouTube channel. You'll have to go over there and check it out for some more intuitive anchoring and integration of void source cohesion and complexification coding, we'll say for now. And it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I was just recording it before getting into the vibe for this report. And so I'm sitting on my back porch listening to birdsong and kind of reflecting on the last couple of weeks, really the last couple of months. This liminal kind of point in between the eclipse seasons and solstices here on Earth tend to be really great midway points for recalibration and application of energy codings and upgrades and evolutions and X, Y's, and Z's that came through during the eclipse seasons or the solstices, which tend to be really big activation or more complex shifts and changes in our region. And so now is when I'm able to kind of check in on the macrocosm a little bit more in depth, and when I kind of can do some of my best work over in the MacroSymposium, delving into details and nuances and structures and all those cosmic nerdery things, because the energetic trajectories are a touch they're a touch more stable and within reason, but yeah, it's a great time for me to be able to go explore and spend a little bit more of my consciousness energetic focus on exploring what's happening in our macrocosmic structure and those interactions. And I, as a result, have spent the last couple of weeks back and forth to astral council meetings, out and about, and doing quite a bit of collective energy work out in the macrocosm, and kind of weaving those interconnections back here to Earth and exploring what they mean to us. And so within this little catch-up macrocosmic report vibe, I am going to kind of give a little bit of a non-linear recapping of some things that are happening out in our macrocosm, some energetic themes and patterns and just particular unique things going on right now with the energy shifts, because it all impacts us here in the micro sooner or later. And so it's good to kind of have an idea of what's happening out and about. And these themes happening out in the macrocosm are in fact reflected in the themes that we're experiencing here. We're just having our own unique experience of them. And so let's see, where do we want to start? This will maybe be a little semi-channeled, a little rabbit traily, a little, maybe educational. You might hear me discuss some terminology and some places and some things that you haven't heard that concept or that term before. And you know what? That's totally par for the course when exploring my work. And so feel free to drop out comments of something that I mentioned that your curiosity is piqued and you'd like me to talk more about and go more in depth in, or come find us over the MacroSymposium, particularly over the MacroSymposia membership. That learning track is where I teach about a lot of these concepts and how to explore them through your own unique lens and your own unique language. And so let's see. Yeah, we'll follow that thread. Okay, so I'm sitting on my back porch, soaking up the bird song, as we discussed. And I had a particularly spicy adventure last night on the same back porch. I felt nudged to come out here to record a voice memo. And throughout that process, there was a whole energy shift that hit collectively. Do you hear the... Let's recalibrate some of that energy coming through right now from the surrounding area. I say, by say, boy, say, oh, say, oh, see the by side, way, set my saint, what do I say? Bane my saint, by do I say, guide by say, guide, I 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 say, guide. Whole white way, son, my by sick, wait, wait, say, guide, way, say, wait, wait, say, guide, I say, that guide, I say, guide, I say, guide, I say, die, yacht, white, what? Well, one was say, twice, say, twice, sigh. Interesting. I suppose we're having a theme of energy shifts hitting as I am on the back porch having voice memo chats. Join the club, join the experience. It's your turn, I guess, for this encounter of energy shifts hitting as I talk. So this will definitely be a non-linear adventure into this macrocosmic energy shifting. And so when I track more macrocosmic work, and that's one of my specialties, is working in these super unhinged wide scale lens views of our reality. One of the things that I in particular specialize in tracking is the primordial shifts, the primordial patterns. In particular, especially in context to this anchor universe, but in all of them, I track the primordial reset pattern, which is half the reason I'm here. But the primordial reset requires a whole other course, really, to truly discuss. But it's essentially a primordial pattern of healing recalibration that is occurring on a macrocosmic scale to an extent to which is unprecedented in the macrocosmic totality, which when you get to realities that have trillions times trillions times trillions of universes, of scenario possibilities that document and archive and experience realities that we can't even fathom, to say that this is a pattern that changed reality in a way that was unprecedented is unhinged. I want you to understand. I don't even know if you will truly understand how unhinged it is for me to say that and mean it. It's the kind of thing that, like, the ancients, your spirit guides, have not even seen happen. Like, it's something that quite literally has not happened in this scale ever, in any origin, in any reality, in any experience. And this change happened before Earth was even considered as a reality. This change was planned before this anchor universe was a consideration, the one that we reside in now. And yet, at the same time, this primordial reset pattern only hit the point of no return threshold for being a anchored reality for the entire macrocosmic totality in the equivalent of the last few years. Again, it's unhinged. I'm fully aware. It's unhinged. You're just gonna have to go with me, follow the whims and the vibes. And so the things that have happened have changed, like, time metrics. They have changed mechanics. They have changed soul body structures. They have changed rules for incarnate processes. It has changed all kinds of things. It is something that, like, it's created this fascinating newness, new complexity, reality that's been just, it's had the ancient ones just giddy, just either irritated and experiencing the experience of irritation for the first time in, like, billions of years, or just, like, unhinged, giddy, and excited. And it's this state of newness that is just unprecedented, and that is causing ancient soul beings who have been living in one consistent soul expression for what we would perceive as billions or trillions of years, all of a sudden deciding, well, actually, this one, we're gonna we're gonna go do some incarnations. We're gonna, it's kind of changed the energetic rules, I guess, if you will, to where they kind of have to, and that the possibility of residing in one state of soul mechanism development for that sustained period of time. I know time doesn't work in the same ways in some of those realms. I know, just bear with me. But even still, it has changed, like, the rate in which souls will have to pursue complexification and the depth of that. And one interesting facet of that is it's changing the complexity rate, even in what many would perceive as these very high vibrational, only light, very, very radiant, etheric, all about love and compassion kind of shit. It's changing the composition of the energetics, even in places like that, to hold a different level of complexity. All of this really started as some of the best energy healings do, at the root, at the beginning, and with just a subtle soothing and reharmonization and restoration. Some of the most powerful energy healings. Some of the energy healings that can lead to the most profound change and transformation can be what at first glance seem the simplest. They can be in nature actually the most complex. And that is the contradictory complexity of totality and the soul symphony. But what essentially changed in that primordial reset in the absolute most simplistic, diluted, simplified kind of terms, it changed the core abandonment wounding that had unintentionally persisted across all anchor universes, no matter the shifts and the transformations and the reconstruction of ruled realities, and how realities were ruled and structured, and the archetypes and the frameworks and the energetics behind the possibilities. It was kind of this core root wounding that I want to say caused persistent dysregulation or corruption. But in reality, in the scale of the macrocosm, when looking at the mechanistic functions within the totality, those things have very important energetic and mechanistic purposes. And so it's really more than that. It's more of a subliminal level wounding that goes deeper even than the unconscious. It's an extremely soul subliminal level wounding that the architects and the primordial sources basically decided needed to receive an energy healing for. That root abandonment wounding that really happened from the way in which void and more activated expressions of source emerged within the primordial universe. And that energetic rate of rhythm, that energetic recipe that created the kind of primordial foundation, the primordial song that all other variations of songs and reality and potentialities is crafted from. that foundational archetypal recipe. It created this wounding within the void energetics of separation in a way that is beyond how we tend to think about disconnection, because disconnection can be a beautifully empowering and a beautifully profoundly connective process. But this was like an energetic shame or energetic unworthiness energy that began to be persistently encoded within void energetics, which then began translated into persistent woundings within what you would understand as like shadow or fog, like corruptions or energetics. Which again, these energies on a mechanistic level have like beautifully, profoundly important purposes for the functioning of reality. You need them to be harmonious. But it's this, like I said, I need a whole course to talk about this. But this experience of that was changed, essentially, in this primordial reset thing. That this pattern that happened is like a shockwave that went out throughout the macrocosm. And then it actually went out through the macrocosm, through the gateway planets, as the conduit for this, as these access points that these uniquely positioned, mechanistically aligned conduit points that are able to reach all other points. And Earth just so happened to be one of those gateway planets, one of these conduit points that sent out this shockwave of energetic recalibration on a primordial level, in a way that like this universe hadn't even encountered primordial energy. They'd encountered primordial in the context of this anchor universe, like the primordiality, the primordial energetics, and the primordial beings that were here kind of at the beginning of this universe's creation. But this anchor universe hadn't even seen and encountered the primordial sources from the totality since the startup sequence, essentially, of this universe. And then they essentially wiped the memory of the souls from that had encountered them. They basically wiped the memory, and that allowed the energy that allowed the seed keepers and the original souls from this universe to write a unique story and allow that to unfold naturally, essentially, and to explore it as needed. And so it's only been in recent decades, in the recent centuries, I guess, really when beings from other anchor universes and the architect universes and stuff began to visit those who had been kind of sequestered here in this anchor universe for the duration of its anchoring. Because at first, this universe wasn't fully anchored. It only began to hit the point of no return to be an anchored universe within the totality instead of just a universe of scenario within the architect universe. I'm not sure if it's quite been 1 billion years yet. I know at least like in the hundreds of millions of years. And time is wonky. But in the histories, that's kind of the scale. That's when our energetics began to root and anchor enough complexity and enough kind of established energetic strength and individuation and fulfillment to anchor into a structured, delineated universe. And that's why it's still technically, in a lot of councils and in a lot of discourse, even in the archives, it's still referred to sometimes as the universe of Nu, because the naming of an anchor universe can take a very long time for it to be anchored fully. And that's because, like I said, we're still kind of in the early stages of the primordial reset, which is part of the purpose of this anchor universe, is to facilitate that to the rest of the macrocosm, while also anchoring in its own fulfillment and purpose. And so there's been a really interesting experience over recent years in my council visits and explorations of running into different beings and realizing I was accidentally telling these other interdimensional beings new information. I don't know how to tell you how unhinged it feels sometimes, especially when I was struggling, especially a few years ago, to even get other humans in the collective to even understand what I was talking about at any level. I was still very much in the hermit journey at that point. To be astral traveling, very advanced astral traveling, to places that have never heard anybody else chart or discuss on Earth or whatever, just out universe mapping and learning the structure of the universe and all that kind of, casual shit. I would be interacting, I'd be on grid working trips, macrocosmic grid working, out in the full macrocosm. I'd be out just tinkering on grids and doing training and practicing, and I was trained in doing energy work on planets and universes and realms to a more advanced degree before I even got to Earth humans. My transition point was interdimensional beings, and then I started specializing and advancing my practice and techniques for Earth humans. And but yeah, throughout all this process, I would be just tinkering on grids and just coming across other beings out in the, I'd be at different dimensions and density levels and such. Sometimes beings and ships. Sometimes they were in similar light body type structures, whatever. And They'd just be popping by and I'd be talking to them. And sometimes these would be just like ancient beings. just ancient beings that have access to like amounts of knowledge and complexities and activation levels of knowledge that is unfathomable to me. And I'd start telling them something, and it would be new information to them. And that was a wild thing to process as a reality. And, you know, my guides would be like, well, why not? Why are you not capable of having new information and deprogramming a lot of hierarchy stuff? And that's one thing that, you know, this macrocosmic report has really been more of a little lesson. But that's one of the things that was super important in my training, and one of many reasons why they introduced me. I started astral traveling and being introduced to different interdimensional beings and different regions and all this kind of stuff, and the idea of interaction with Earth and all that kind of stuff, and being able to have a soul lineage to the cosmos and all these kind of stuff. I was introduced to all of that before I even knew, like, New Agey, Starseed, any of that kind of stuff was even a thing. I had never come across those concepts. I was more in mental health or pagan, eclectic witchcraft type spaces. That was not something I had run into at all. And so I had just kind of been self-initiated and then spirit guide initiated into all of this, really before I could get heavily programmed around certain terminology or concepts or limitations and what could be. And so I think that was a powerful and potent gift that I will always deeply appreciate. And so with all of that, I want to reiterate to you just how much confidence you need to have in your own perspective when engaging with interdimensional beings and things, and to really like recognize that you are more than capable and wise and strong enough to hold your own strength of perspective and vantage point when engaging with anybody, fellow humans, no matter if they're, you know, in a leadership position or authority position or whatever, or if they're an interdimensional, intercosmic being, that hierarchy is an illusion most of the time. And sometimes there are systems and structures that organize roles and things like that. But in the macrocosm, there's no really true hierarchy of superiority in the way that Earth humans like to think that there is, in the way of like interacting with an interdimensional being and automatically thinking that you have to follow every single thing that they say and think that it's 100% true and that there's no distortion and no perspective disillusionment, and that, you know, that there's no possibility that it could be incorrect to your experience or whatever, you know. And it's wild to me the things that some people will hear just because it was channeled from a council or from an interdimensional being, taking it like the new scripture, and that's just unhinged to me. Truly. When they're just other souls like you, and they have a unique vantage point and a unique perspective, but that unique vantage point and unique perspective is also unique because it is colored by their unique cultural experience and their unique dimensional and density vantage point of experience. Now, I think this is the perfect time to just pause for just like a second. We've been chatting for a bit. I was getting into some deeper topics to start us off. Have a little bit of sip of some hydration, some water. I'm gonna also have some water, and I'm gonna have a little hit off the bowl. and we're just going to have a little recentering moment. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some unifying patterns across all of these different macrocosmic cultural regions that are happening right now, and some of the shenanigans that are afoot because of that. And I'm sure some of those themes and things will apply to us here on Earth as well. So let me see. I'm going to have a little bit of water. There's a little bit of chaos energy in the background. Yes, we're going to do just like a little quick song-woven harmonization and soothing and restoration and bliss weaving into chaos energy to restore our ability to have more harmonious bliss and adventure when experiencing that energy, instead of feeling like it's something to avoid or repress or run from. Okay. All right. Ready? Perfect. Face for movie. What way I was for you? I have to be able to say I was small. What I say when I was silent. I was the way I was the way. Okay, have yourself a little bit of hydration, or take yourself a little head off your bowl. And like I said, I track the primordial patterns, the big macrocosmic patterns that are undercurrent ripples that are affecting or being influenced by, or just similar themes of energetic movements that run throughout the macrocosm. A lot of them are linked to different layers of tracking the progress of the primordial reset on the collective, and being aware of the layers of those shifts that most impact Earth and this cosmic region. And so, like I said, with these being the primordial patterns and such, they're also the ones that are impacting the rest of our anchor universe, no matter the region and the mechanistic role or dimension or density or whatever. They're still experiencing them to some degree, to some capacity, just in different ways and at different rates, X, Y, and Z. And so the main ones that I was going to talk about are the void source cohesion complexification pattern that's coming through. And that one in particular is linked to, well, that we had the story time on at the beginning, kind of as preparation to get you in the vibe. And then I'm also technically tracking the chaos timeline trajectory cluster, which is kind of an amalgamate of a lot of these patterns, along with some other more complex mechanism structures and such. And all of these are kind of tracking the inner mechanism recalibrations happening across the macrocosm that are leading to changes in the timeline trajectories, and the kind of the flavor of those changes, if you will. And chaos is a profoundly intelligent and clever energy in a way that I think is very underappreciated by Earth. Earth cultures have done a lot of damage to the archetype of chaos because it's so potent and powerful. It's dangerous, to hierarchical power structures. Chaos really doesn't work well with hierarchy. And so I love how things come up. But yeah, so we are currently experiencing the chaos timeline trajectory as that's kind of the primordial archetype mascot that is kind of most potently fueling the themes of the timeline trajectory across the macrocosm. That's kind of why it's called the chaos timeline trajectory, because that archetypal energy is so strong in the, the rhythm of movement, basically, and across regions, across no matter where you're looking at. And so we are experiencing that timeline trajectory through patterns like the void source cohesion complexification. I know it's a mouthful. I know. It is what it is. Sometimes you just have to say it how it wants to be said. And so, with all of that, there have been shenanigans afoot all across this anchor universe in particular. Ooh, I love a good yawn, energy clearing. Oh, that felt nice. Oh, I felt that down in the muscles. And so, with all of this going on, one of the outcomes that has been happening across the macrocosm is lots of realm dissolution ripples, basically changing the borders and barriers and energetic property lines between realms and micro realms that fall within broader umbrella realms, and all of these different categories of cultures and interactions, and we've been encountering that across the macrocosm as close to parallel as I can say for the last close to 2 years at this point, since the primordial reset, but it's really started to hit a peak over the last year or two. And so it's continuing to hit. We're still in the progression and the process of the realm dissolution aspects of these energy shifts. And that is because, part of the shift and change that is happening as a part of the primordial reset, basically a giant macrocosmic energy healing, to change the energetic resonance and relationship and just essence, I guess, of our soul connection to the concept of void and stuff. Because in other anchor universes in particular, really, void isn't seen as a separate energy. It's seen as an amalgamate, one and the same as source energy. But there is a very polarized perception of void versus source in the construction rules and perceptions of this anchor universe. And some of that is by design, because it's basically aggravated magnification of the primordial core root woundings and that energetics, with subtle changes. Like I said, that requires a whole course to go really fully in depth into. But it was essentially this universe is kind of aggravated version of that, you could simplify it to say. And so, by nature, we have a lot of polarity constructs rooted into our rules as something that is part of our anchor universe, like purpose, like part of our fulfillment push to reach anchored universe presence for our soul bodies as we exist within this anchor universe, to reside within an anchor universe. Part of that contracts, I guess you could say, but just kind of the the vibe. I know, super eloquent, yeah. The vibe of this anchor universe, the point of complexification, that kind of the point that that you get to, it's like, okay, now I have kind of I've kind of ticked all the boxes for this game. I've kind of checked off all the little side quests. I've got the main mission down. Like, this is kind of cool. I've checked everything off. Like, I can say that I have fully experienced my own unique, complex experience of all this universe had to offer, basically. That is when one of the flavors and one of the vibes and one of the energies behind that process for this anchor universe is the integration of void energy in a very harmonized, complexified nature, in harmonious union with your source energy, and having a very diversified balance of it within your systems, and side quests and such that are processing woundings around things like the abandonment wounding concepts and the themes around shame and resentment and such around disconnection and that kind of thing. So very core energetics, very core patterns and themes to this anchor universe's reality. And so with that, it's of course changing our barriers and boundaries and the rules for such in our reality. So it's changing the construction of realms and kind of morphing the shape of the realms, the flow of the realms. It's causing different realms that... Oh, there's an interesting plane coming overhead right now. You hear that? Ooh, that energy, that whistling energy with the plane. Gospia tayo si mimi kita isea do kai sai pai pai sai kwai twai sei o pai kita ngai no ni kita sen me kita sai kita twai sei twai ta kai sai ta kai tuwa hai so pan mai pai ta kai. Yeah. Interesting energy. Very spicy, vibrant, complex, dimensional energy out and about today. In the last 24 hours or so since recording this. But yeah, realm dissolution happening. And it's a part of it is connected to those patterns and those energetics, the shifts and changes in void energetics and the delineations of boundaries and borders and such, to kind of accommodate the shifts and changes in the collective soul mechanics. And so with all of this, we are having, let's see, one of the first documented cases of the first stage of this happening. This is a throwback. We had the nursery realm and Manaloe, which was more spider realm like. They kind of look like black, smoky, wispy, kind of spidery like, but a little bit more like tuft ball like too. I don't know. Kind of cute, honestly. Very friendly species, very void dominant. And they basically feed on runoff energy from the nursery realm, because nursery realms process a lot of energy to be able to incubate essentially baby souls, either baby souls that are being created from this anchor universe's source well, or the nursery realms can also be transition points for souls transferring incarnation trajectories from one anchor universe to another. Usually they go through the nursery realm to kind of recalibrate their mechanics to function under the new anchor universe's construction rules. It's a whole thing in a different way than just incarnating in a different universe within the same anchor universe of scenario, kind of like a more parallel kind of potentiality. That's a whole other thing. So the nursery realms, they long story short, they they have basically a lot of energetic runoff that could be seen almost like toxic sludge type of thing. And so there is a more void dominant realm like space and community called Manolue that live in that region. That is one of the ones that lives around that area, and they need to consume basically more source dominant energetic constructs. And so they basically, would feed off that energy. There's other stuff too, but that was one of the first documented cases. And on Earth, I want to say that was like spring or summer 2022. I'm not super confident on that, but sometime around there. And the two realms basically had a dissolution point in the barrier. And so it was a whole thing. And, fortunately, the Manalue, they're void dominant, but they don't have like more of the malicious coding and expression of that. And so it was beautifully orchestrated in the symphony of evolution of the universe, that it worked out perfectly, that the cohesion and the merging of the species of basically I don't know, I usually call them nursery keepers, but it's a very specific species like structure that the nursery keepers take on, and like I said, the nursery realm is just a very unique construction of energy. It's a very unique amalgamate of dimensions and densities. It's very close to the anchor universes like Sourcewell and stuff by design. And so there was basically a blending, a hybridization of the species in order to kind of mediate the merging and the realm dissolution that happened between the two areas. And so that was kind of what you could, for the sake of perception, consider to be way further out in the macrocosm, basically. And think about it as like the ripples have been moving throughout our universe's environment and mechanics since that point, in probably spring, summer 2022 in our time. And it's been, making its way over through the mechanics and through the energy flows in this direction. And we've been getting like little micro bursts of it, little micro ripples, like little kind of like previews of the vibes. And one of our neighboring planets, Ipthos, that resides parallel to us, like they're currently living and walking around, same as us right now, over in the Andromeda Galaxy. They have been experiencing the realm dissolution pretty significantly with the Talfa, which is a species that lived in a river realm, mostly hybrid zone, but it also has spider realm, I believe. It kind of, the point, it's in a unique position where it sort of kind of gets a little bit of all three of our umbrella realms. So it's hard to perfectly say, because I'm trying to simplify, but it basically had a hybridized void and etheric elemental based realm structure, community, basically blur into their basically become refugees on their planet to a degree because of this realm dissolution that was happening. And it was something that like they had contact with the culture on Ipthos, and they would kind of meet cyclically as basically a certain energy build up. I guess this is an interesting theme reoccurring. I didn't think about that until just now. That there's an energetic, it happens a lot at the border between realms and such. It's not super uncommon, but basically this certain substance builds up in the friction, basically, between their realm, the edge of their realm, and the movement of the galaxy through space, and particularly their solar system and such, that it kind of rubs a hole in the veil, you could say, that every certain cycles, it builds up to a certain point, and they would kind of cross over and they would relay some of the sludge or whatever, and the Ipthosians could use it for different recreations and such. And so there was kind of a cultural exchange already pre-established there on Ipthos. And Ipthos has a lot more of an established cultural exchange with the local solar systems and local communities within the galaxy in particular. So it's a little different for them than us, but they started experiencing that a couple of months ago. And it's kind of escalated and become such a thing that we even kind of paused the IEP2 classes a little bit, because their university that was in the exchange program with us they're much more like when you think about our colleges versus their university, it's a lot more hands-on learning than book learning in a lot of ways. And so a lot of them are actively participating in the refugee integration and the cultural exchange process for this, especially because part of the University of Ashion, which is the school over on Ipthos, in particular, that I work with, they are associated with a larger macro universal system of universities that specifically they have a lot of frameworks and systems in place for ambassadorship and for exchange of cultures and such that we will be exploring more in my work over the MacroSymposia Learning Track and interdimensional ambassadorship and such. And so I kind of got the heads up recently when doing these council meetings and all this kind of stuff and checking in with Mahawi Elrum, the professor that I collaborate with over there, that it was coming. It's coming our way. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like in the application here and exactly what that energy is going to be. But we've been experiencing microbursts of this for a couple of years now. We've been seeing, and some of this is also coinciding with the Alia grid upgrades and the Tavia Shora or Triple Ouroboros system upgrades, which are also linked a lot to our the changes in our oceans and atmosphere and the veil thinning, if you want to use that metaphor, in those spaces, and being able to experience and engage with more interdimensional communities more easily, even people who you wouldn't traditionally think are spiritual, are having these encounters and experiences because of these kind of realm dissolution experiences. It's kind of like patches being worn, like sudden portals and patches appearing in spaces in the atmosphere and the area around us, where suddenly can traverse between micro dimensions and quantumly move energy and see in different lenses and scopes. So that's kind of some of the precursor experiences we've been having for this, but in particular we're going to have some more void dominance. We're gonna have a mix. We're gonna have like the light beings and all that kind of stuff showing up too, and the beings that lean more in that direction. But we're also going to have an influx of more void dominant beings kind of popping in through these realm dissolution patches, because we also are intercepted by the same three umbrella realms that Andromeda is. The river realm, which leans a little bit more elemental fae-like. Spider realm, which is sometimes they really do look spider-like in a lot of ways, but more shadowy. In a lot of ways, they thrive on memory extraction and consumption. They kind of are consumption. They're kind of like an offshoot and an evolution of the realm of consumption. The realm of consumption is older. The spider realm is newer, but it's a more specialized evolution of it. And so the realm of consumption leans closer to what people would perceive as like more demonic entities and that kind of those kind of dimensional and density layers of energy and consciousness experience. And so they kind of all three intersect around Earth. So we're going to most likely experience encounters with all three of these umbrella realms, which have a multitude of different microspecies. So it's hard to say quite yet precisely which ones will be popping up. But I can say, just last night, on this same back porch, I was out here and had my portals activating, had cryptids running around in the woods around my house, had fluctuations of patches activating. It was like a sudden surge of an energy shift that the mechanisms behind the scenes were kind of recalibrating, and we had a macro energy shift coming through that hit us from the collective consciousness connection hub, but also from a few other patterns like the void source cohesion complexification pattern and all that kind of the breaking. And you know, we had a surge of these patterns kind of hit us from the macrocosm, at least they hit close enough that my energetic sphere was able to kind of feel them and kind of grab onto their threads and pull them closer and weave them into the energies that we're activating here, which were mostly the consciousness connection hub, the vitality system, and the Tavia Shore, or the triple Ouroboros system for the planet, and pull them in and weave them into those activations that were happening, and so they would then kind of ripple out into the rest of the soul body. So all that kind of was happening. So I've already been experiencing it. I've been experiencing that. It is quickly approaching. And so the message I kind of gave in the middle about keeping in mind that you have you are the specialist of your perspective and of your authentic vantage point and of your unique soul lineage and your unique soul wisdom. And the more you really anchor into your unique vantage point and your unique perspective, the more inner authority and empowerment you will have when engaging with these different beings, no matter if they're kind of overwhelming in their luminous love and light, or if they activate all the void within you because of their deep, dense shadow. And you can still feel very fluidly secure in your unique wisdom, no matter what you're engaging with, and no matter what's happening in our collective, no matter what you're experiencing from other humans and the dying hierarchical structures in our reality. You know, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. So this is a little bit more of a macrocosmic lesson than a macrocosmic report. We'll get a little bit more gossipy on the macrocosmic news. Maybe next time. We'll have to tell you some story times about reweaving black holes that kept popping up nonstop around Emulvera the other day. And I just was over there. It felt like, like the game, like whack-a-mole or whatever. It was kind of like that. Except for I was just in the middle of like all of these different energies. And I'm just constantly, here's a black hole that I have to like put a patch on real fast. Here's another one popping up. As soon as I get that one off, there's another one behind there. And now there's two over here. Oh gosh, it was it was a journey. That was one of the other side effects we've been seeing pop up a lot, is little patches where there's just sudden bursts of black holes just all over the place. It's just that need to be rewoven and harmonized and rectified, and that has, we'll get into some more of the story times about some of the things that are happening in some particular regions and particular solar systems and vibes like that. So stick around. Make sure you're subscribed and all that kind of good stuff, so that you can catch up on future macrocosmic reports. I feel like, this is the first macrocosmic report of the series, so we had to give you a little bit of the foundation, some of the background, some of the insights to get you started, before we get a little too specialized and too adventurous in the discourse. So energy is moving, things is shifting and changing, stability through fluidity is going to be the key that you need to keep it moving through everything that is happening and everything to come. And just keep in mind that you're here for a reason, and that you're only here because you're meant to be, and that you have the wisdom and the wisdom to do this. The strength and the wisdom to get through whatever comes your way, and to thrive in whatever comes your way. All right, until next time, take it easy.